This is Matt Rosen, and this is the Grit Mindset with me, your host, Matt Rosen. The mission of the Grit Mindset is to inspire and empower our listeners by delving deep into the journeys of those who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger. Through authentic conversations, we uncover the mindsets, strategies, and lessons that have propelled these individuals to overcome adversity and achieve success. My aim is to provide actionable insights and real-world advice to help our listeners cultivate their own grit and navigate their personal and professional lives with confidence and resilience. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's episode of The Grit Mindset with Matt Rosen. I am your host. Great to have you all here listening today. With me is a good friend and client of mine. Excited to have him on the show. Let's welcome Chaitan Fahnestock. He is the CEO and founder of Sportsmo. Welcome on.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Well, Chaitan, why don't we start by telling everyone about your latest venture and what Sportsmo is all about.
Right. Very excited to share. Sportsmo is brand new. I think it's a novel idea as it relates to this category, but it is an app that's designed to allow fans to donate to their favorite college athletic programs, kind of with the eye toward this new name, image, likeness money that needs to be raised each year by these schools that want to be competitive. So it's gamified giving.
Awesome. So come Saturday, A&M's playing UTSA as I think the first game of the season. I know this because I already created an account. I log in and what do I do next?
So the way you'll enjoy the app is, downloading it, of course. You'll load your wallet. You can load it with as little as $10, and then you'll make pledges against things that happen on the field, like total yards, rushing yards, passing yards, touchdowns, field goals, created turnovers, those kinds of things. And when those plays happen on the field, you'll donate money in small increments, like think as small as $1,
okay,
$6 for touchdowns if you wish. And I think another thing that's, again, novel and fun about this app, a new way to experience a football game, is that you'll enjoy the game play-by-play and also the giving that takes place with a select group of friends that you choose to participate with.
No, that's awesome. I've already got my own group, Dallas Aggies, that I've been sending it out to my buddies. So what kind of inspired you to go down this path, and then we'll kind of back up from there?
Sure. It was the January a year ago, and I was, for whatever reason, somewhat wrestling with this issue in my mind with Oklahoma State, my alma mater, in mind. And I was thinking about the $20.5 million annual bogey required to pay athletes from football to basketball, women's basketball, all down the line. And, $20.5 million is no small number.
That's
for
a decent chunk.
A school like Oklahoma State. And there are many other schools just in the same boat like Oklahoma State. And I was kind of problem solving, I think, in my own mind. And I considered that while, universities always, early and often, are calling on their wealthiest donors, there's an opportunity for kind of everyday fans, whether you're an alum of A&M or whether you grew up in that part of the state, your parents went to A&M, you might want to, help that team and help that athletic program be successful. And this allows people to have an easy button to donate and make a difference.
No, that's awesome. We'll talk more about that. So tell us a little bit about, where you grew up and what led you down the path through your life of becoming an entrepreneur.
It's a good question, Matt. I was thinking about this just yesterday. I took an entrepreneurship course at Wichita State University. I grew up in Wichita, and in high school took that class. And so there was a little bit of a desire and thinking that maybe entrepreneurship would be interesting to me as I was progressing, high school and then what next. And so that was probably my first real exposure to what.
And when did you take that class? Was that in high school?
High school.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was, it was just a special class for, probably a summer class my mom and dad probably signed me up for, but it was something I would have been interested in for them to do that. But took an entrepreneurship class, and I think it probably got my wheels turning about what could be. I mean, I was an entrepreneur in some ways. I was a worker in any case from an early age, throwing penny power or hanging those on the door in a pretty tough neighborhood that was not too far from my home. I mowed lawns with a buddy, and we would do that during the growing season there in Wichita. I even had a air conditioner cover business. My family business is heating and air conditioning, and my dad sicked me onto that opportunity where I'd go out and custom, I'd measure air conditioner units outdoor, outside on the side of houses, go have them custom built, and then I'd go deliver it to their house and put it on. And different from in Dallas, up there in Kansas, the winters are tough, and you did want to have your air conditioner covered in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So jobs like that, and I worked at a golf course, worked at a restaurant. I mean, I was a worker from an early age, and I think through some of that entrepreneurship and just work led me to entrepreneurship at Riveron and now at Sportsmo.
Yes, and did you actually work in was it a family business you worked in?
I did.
What was that like?
So I didn't work at Fahnestock Heating and Air a lot. I think the lion's share of that work was what I just described.
Okay.
And that was something I could do kind of moonlighting after school. And, in addition to other jobs that I would have in the summertime. I did work one summer at Fahnestock, and it was it was a hard work. And it probably inspired me to do really well once I got to Oklahoma State, because I didn't want to go bend metal and, haul off, old furnaces for very much longer than I did over those 3 months.
Yeah, so it's good to taught you what you didn't want to do.
Exactly.
So you graduated from Oklahoma State. I know you founded a very successful consulting firm here in Dallas. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yep. I landed at Oklahoma State. I think I was telling my daughter what my declared major was at that time, just recently. And I think I was telling friends and family that I was studying international business and French. And I went to Oklahoma State. Made a ton of sense at the time to me. Ultimately, I did get a minor in French, but my major that I finished with was accounting. And I kind of happily fell into accounting because I was doing well in school, and I had an advisor tell me that, I would be capable of, that track, which was a little tougher than maybe some of the other ones that I could have chosen. And then I really just enjoyed my advisor and enjoyed some of the professors that I had in accounting, and it all fell into place. And fortunately for me at that time, which wasn't the best of economic times when I graduated in '92, the accounting degree really enabled me to have a good job right after school. And so I moved from Stillwater, Oklahoma down to Dallas, Texas, and my first job was at Ernst Young as an auditor.
All right, so you started off your career at Ernst Young, great training ground, the Big Four for lots of folks. What led you to then be an entrepreneur and get on the ground at your first firm?
Yep. Well, I wasn't ready for true entrepreneurship quite yet.
Okay.
But I spent 5 years at Ernst Young, and in that role as an auditor, progressing from kind of a staff role to a senior associate onto manager, you spend time on site with lots of different clients. And so you do get exposure to, businesses in different industries, different stages of life, different sizes. And that was intriguing to me. I enjoyed learning and drinking out of the fire hose in that way. I think that after having been at Ernst for 5 years, and that was a big company, I was ready to try something smaller. And so when I left Ernst Young, it was for a great entrepreneurial opportunity, just smaller company opportunity. I wasn't the entrepreneur, but a company that was about $8 million in revenue, called Audit Force, which is today known as Jefferson Wells. But I got an opportunity to do some of the same kinds of things I was accustomed to at Ernst Young in serving clients, but more in a sales role. And got to participate in helping to build a company from 8 million to more than 200 million over the 6 years that I was there. And so I got to see entrepreneurship really at work, and something that was going from quite small insignificant in size to, really, much bigger and scalable.
Was that a difficult transition from going from an accounting, say, delivery guy to being a salesman?
It was. I think it was a natural calling for me. It was where I needed to be. And believe it or not, accounting in the role that I had as an auditor is quite a social job. It's not quite as green visor as you might think, because you're interacting with your client, you're interacting with your team, you're managing teams, you're managing several different partners that are your bosses, and so a lot of skills come into play on the social front in that job. But kind of diving into something smaller was definitely different. A lot fewer resources, a lot more of your sleeves rolled up.
Yeah.
If you need something done, it's you doing it, and I think there's a lot to be gained and learned through that opportunity as well. So I had a good experience at Jefferson Wells, and when I left Jefferson Wells, it was for an opportunity at Grant Thornton. So back into the public accounting racket, and also in a sales role. And it was an opportunity that was compelling to me because Sarbanes-Oxley, that legislation had just come about, and the clients of companies like Ernst Young and Grant Thornton were really wrestling with the effort required to match up against that legislation.
Yeah, it's tough to be a public company, for sure.
In that era, it was exceptionally tough to be a public company and to adapt to those, the changing landscape and rules.
Got it. So then that led you to the next, which was a company you co-founded, is that right?
I didn't co-found it, but I was what I like to call an early adopter.
Okay.
A friend of mine that I met at Ernst Young named Landon Smith founded Riveron.
Okay.
And Landon knocked on my door in 2005 and asked me if I would be willing to come and lock arms with him and build Riveron, which was an early stage company. I think we were running about $1 million in revenue when this conversation would have taken place. And I was a hard sell at that time, but he kept twisting my arm, and he succeeded in reeling me in to join him. And it couldn't have been a better decision. Together with many other of our Ernst Young colleagues and many other talented folks, had quite a journey in building Riveron from $1 million to north of $300 million when I retired a couple years back. And that was true ride of entrepreneurship, I would say.
That's awesome. Share with us maybe a really challenging time, whether it was at that first startup or whether it was at Riveron, or even starting Sportsmo, where you feel like you've had to overcome a great amount of adversity. I'd love to hear a story.
Yeah. I think I'll probably share a couple of stories about adversity as it relates, in particular, to the Riveron story. I think at Riveron, like I said, we were a very young, very small company, but we were very aspirational. We had a place that we were headed, and we were going to be super successful. And the earliest days, I would say some of the adversity came in the form of, are we going to collect that invoice so that we can make payroll, this weekend? And those kind of growing pains are much different than ones that come later.
Yeah. But
out pounding the pavement, selling work, delivering work, and then collecting on the work delivered was exciting, and we celebrated every time we could, whether it be winning a new logo, a new client for the first time, whether expanding work, or we even celebrated back in those days when an invoice was paid and we're in the mailbox.
Everyone got paid that weekend.
Getting a check out of that, getting a check. So I think that's one type of adversity is just really trying to dig a company out of the earth, right, for the first time. It's greenfielding a business, and doing that with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Later, and this would be fast forward about 10 years into our build of Riveron, I can remember when we got our kind of revenue generation, our sales out of alignment with our ability to recruit. In fact, we were recruiting faster than we were selling at that time, and so we became a little bit overstaffed. And it was, somewhat of a self-inflicted, business issue through our decision making and through our visibility to, the pipeline of people and to revenue. And I will say that caused a lot of, pain and suffering for me as a decision maker, and Landon as a decision maker in that time period. And we had to make a tough decision to let some people go. We had to put, projects that we deemed to be super important to our future and to our growth on hold, or kind of cancel them altogether. And I'll say it was not fun. That was not my favorite chapter of the Riveron story. But we overcame through some good decisions, some timely decisions, and then thrived shortly thereafter.
What did you learn through that you might have done over if had the chance?
I think, if given the chance, because it really was kind of a self-inflicted wound, knowing what I know now, we would have read the tea leaves a little bit better about the market, what the market was yielding in the way of kind of new work, and we would have tapped the brakes on hiring, or just have been a little bit more selective in that time period, and we would have avoided that swoon. But I guess at the end of the day, everything happens for a reason. We learned a lot, and it probably enabled our great success that came after that.
Yeah, it's tough. Any entrepreneur, number one, making payroll, but then how many folks do you need?
Right.
That's always a challenge. Well, obviously you're on the grit mindset, so I always ask every guest, what does grit mean to you?
Grit. Grit is the name of my daughter's club lacrosse team. So that's one thing that it means to me. And so I get to spend a lot of time cheering on her Grit 2028 traveling lacrosse team.
Awesome.
Fun to watch. I do really enjoy watching her play. But grit to me means just stick-to-itiveness. I think it is being able to dig in when things might take a little bit longer than you'd prefer to materialize, and having the stick-to-itiveness and the tenacity and the wherewithal to kind of keep plugging away, knowing that you're going to realize your vision. Yeah. That to me is grit.
So how have the past experiences, whether it be in the family business to, being a founding member of, multiple successful consulting firms, prepared you for the adventure you're on now?
That's a good question, Matt. I think, I thought when I retired from Riveron that I was truly hanging up my cleats, and I was going to be able to enjoy, the freedom, the free time afforded to me. And I did a little bit. But what I did learn is that I can't really sit on my hands. Yeah. I'm not built to play golf every day. I'm not built to, be at the beach every day, although I like both of those things. I still like to build. And that's, I guess, why this idea around Sportsmo materialized for me. I wasn't really asking for it. In fact, I really tried to avoid the opportunity in front of me. I thought somebody else is already doing it, and if so, great on them. And I can kind of put this aspiration to bed. But as I did research and asked a lot of questions of athletic directors and coaches and lawyers who were following the landscape of NIL and college athletics, I learned that nobody was doing it this way that I thought could be impactful for fans and universities and players alike. So here I am, back in the trenches.
Well, it's an exciting opportunity that you've embarked on. I think it's going to be a great app. We'll make sure we put a link to it in the show so that people can get out there, download it, cheer on their team. It's going to be really cool, and I look forward to using it every Saturday when watching college football.
Thank you. I hope you'll do it, and I appreciate you encouraging your listeners to do the same. So download Sportsmo now and create a group, make some pledges, and I hope you have a really good time in the app all season.
So obviously you had a very successful career, as an entrepreneur, helping build a couple companies of success. You're starting on your next venture. What are some of the other challenging things you've undertaken? I know I'm leading the witness a little bit. I know some of the adventures you've been on, but I'd love for you to share with our listeners about some of your recreational hobbies.
Yeah. One hobby in particular that's really pretty new for me is mountain climbing, and it wasn't something that was on my bingo card really, but I had some close personal friends and business friends that were planning a trip to do Mount Rainier, and for whatever reason I said yes, and then began preparations to do that.
And how tall is Mount Rainier again?
It's a little over 14,000 feet.
It's a pretty good peak.
And it's in the Northwest, and so it's always covered with snow. And no matter what time of year, it's going to have a good amount of snow on the top. And so began doing research, reading books, working out, collecting the gear, and we did it. There was a group of us that did that about 4 years ago now, and it's a tough experience.
Yeah, what was that experience like? Tell us about that.
It's getting started about 5,000 feet above sea level, with the end goal being 14,300 or 4,000 feet, and that's a lot. And it's a lot, especially when you're wearing shoes that you've never attempted to try before.
And that's
big boots with crampons on the bottom. And so you probably hike about 1,000 feet of vertical in your regular shoes, and then you're switching into boots and crampons, and you've got a 50-pound pack on your back, and you're going pretty vertical. You're covering 5,000 feet that first day, and the guides are taking you pretty fast, and at least fast from my perspective. And you spend the night up there, and then you get up the next day, do some training around how you rope together and how you stop yourself if you start sliding off the side of the mountain. Those kinds of important things you're learning.
Stay on the mountain.
Stay on the mountain and stay connected to your team. And that afternoon, then you climb up to the next camp on a glacier, so another 1,500 feet of vertical. And the next effort, which typically takes place, about midnight that night, is going from about 11,000 feet up to the top. We, on this particular trip, didn't get to do the last step. It was late in the summer, and the crevasses had become too broad to cross by ladders, and so we weren't able to get up to the very top. Instead, our consolation prize was descending into crevasses and then climbing out with picks and our crampons. So it was a good consolation, not quite as good as getting to the top, but it definitely led to an aspiration to do more mountain climbing with these same guys.
Have you had that opportunity to do a few more?
I have. We've done a couple other meaningful ones. The next year we did Grand Teton, and I'm happy to report we got to the top.
Nice.
That was a pretty harrowing climb and dangerous. It felt a lot more dangerous even than Rainier, because there were some really exposed sections. Similar in height, about 14,000 feet. This time of year in that part of the country, there's no snow at the top, but I'll tell you, it was cold up there once you got to the top. And it was a good relief to make it all the way to the top, and then frightening on the way down, because part of that coming down, you're rappelling. And that was something I had never done in the wild like that. And that's something else.
Yeah.
But we made it successfly.
That's going to be a great feeling. And you've done Kilimanjaro as well, right?
Kilimanjaro was next on the list. And my friend Marquez Bella and I, and plus his family, my family joined for the safari, but not for the climb, did that. And Kilimanjaro was a real treat. Different from the other two mountains where it's just a couple of nights on. This is 6 nights on the mountain, and you're climbing the tallest peak, the most prominent mountain in Africa. So it's not only a trip on the mountain, but it's a trip to get there.
Yeah.
Fly from Dallas to Doha and then down. So you're on a plane for a good bit. And spending that much time on the mountain with a group, you get to know them really well. You get to know your guides really well. And you get to know a lot more about yourself than you didn't know you needed to know.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was really special from that perspective.
Well, you definitely have to have a lot of grit to climb any of those peaks. Anything you learned about yourself during that time?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about Kilimanjaro and kind of learning about yourself. I had a moment laying in my tent, I think it was like the third night, and just kind of enjoying being where I was in the moment and having a revelation about the kind of the real luxury of being able to make a trip like this, have the physical capability to go and do, the climb, and reflecting on kind of the people that adventured like I was doing before me that kind of gave me, probably gave me the will to do it. But it made me think about the first Fahnestock that came over from Germany to the United States in the 1700s and what kind of grit it would have taken to do that. And they lost a child on the boat ride over. That's crazy. And so I was thinking about Dietrich Fahnestock. I was thinking a bit about my grandmother, who was a true adventurer and kind of a special person to me. But she would take me in my youngest years on RV trips around the country and gave me kind of the will to explore nearby. And then my mom and dad, who are ultra adventurers, they spent time before graduating college and after they met in India, shortly after they were married. That's actually where my name comes from. And subsequent to that, his second careers, my dad went back to school, became an ordained minister, and my mom and dad together spent time out of the country in Uzbekistan and Brazil and Africa as missionaries. And I think, thinking about my adventure in the context of the adventure that they had shown me the way around was what that epiphany or that dream, that realization was all about on the mountain.
That's really cool. It's such a great amount of role models to learn from. Yeah. As we're kind of wrapping up here, obviously we have a lot of entrepreneurs, first-timers looking to take that first step, do something new. Are there any words of encouragement or advice that you give out to our listeners?
Yeah, I think I think that if you have a vision that you believe in, I do think you have to do your homework, but then I think you've got to just do it. As scary as it might be, as much comfort and as much, easygoing, as easygoing as the alternative might be, I think you have to jump and just do it. And that for me has been good advice to follow as I've decided to embark on this new build of Sportsmo.
Yeah, we talked about it for a good 6-9 months. Went from idea to I'm doing this and let's go.
Yep. And then eventually you got to say, let's go. And it doesn't have to be the perfect conditions for it. You don't have to have everything resolved and solved. You'll have opportunities to imagine and mold the clay along the way, but just jump in.
Yeah, there's never a perfect time. You just got to go.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, any other closing thoughts or things you'd like to share?
No, I just want to thank you so much for having me on the show, and download Sportsmo.
Download Sportsmo. That's the message. All right. For all those listeners out there, thanks for tuning into this week's episode of The Grit Mindset. Download Sportsmo and stay gritty.